Shepherd's pie, or cottage pie, more on that difference in a moment, is a one-dish dinner that delivers maximum comfort food in beef and potato form. Today, we'll whip up decadent cheddar mashed potatoes and serve them atop an incredibly rich and savory beef mince mixture. I don't care how cold and gloomy it is outside, this is a dish that will brighten your day. Let's start with our mashed potatoes. We're going to go ahead and peel these because we want a nice creamy potato at the end. So go ahead and get them peeled and chunked into 1 to 1.5 inch chunks. Just try and keep them the same size. Get those into a large pot of cold water and season it generously. And I do mean generously. We'll go ahead and bring that up to a boil and let it simmer for about 15 minutes or until your potatoes are tender to a fork's touch. I like to drain my potatoes in the very pot they cooked in by just placing a lid over it and pouring out the water carefully, but however you'd like to do it, once they've been drained, return them to that warm pot, and we're going to start adding our creamy fixins here. So let's start with the 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Hey, I said it's comfort food, not health food. We're also going to sprinkle in about a teaspoon of garlic powder, followed by a 1/4 cup of half and half, and a couple tablespoons of full fat sour cream for a little tang and richness, as if it wasn't rich enough already. Crack in some fresh pepper and a little more salt at this point because we poured a lot of it off in that water, and then just get to mashing. We want our potatoes to have a little bit of a chunky bite to them, but not too chunky because we do need to spread them over our pie before it goes into the oven. So once they're looking just about perfect, we'll add our final ingredient, which is 4 ounces of freshly shredded sharp cheddar cheese. This is an English dish, of course, so I feel like cheddar is the right call. We're going to fold that in with a spatula. Go ahead and kill the heat at this point, and just keep stirring until that cheese looks like it's thoroughly melted and well incorporated into your mashed potatoes. At this point, we can go ahead and set this aside on the back of the stove, put a lid on it, and it'll probably still be warm when we go to assemble our pie, which is going to begin with 6 ounces of cremini or button mushrooms, which you will of course finely mince into the size of, ground beef. Once that's accomplished, we'll move on to the meat itself. A couple tablespoons of olive oil into a skillet over medium-high heat. I'm using very lean ground beef here. It's really all I could find. If you were using 80-20, you probably wouldn't need the olive oil at all, or maybe only 1 tablespoon. Now, if you don't have one of these little meat chunker things, I'm not sure what it's called, but it is amazing and it's so helpful for breaking up ground beef, whether you're making tacos or shepherd's pie or a whole host of other meat products. Go ahead and get in there and aggressively chop it up into small pieces, and once it's mostly browned, go ahead and add in your mushrooms. I should add at this point that this is technically a cottage pie as it is made with ground beef. A shepherd's pie authentically is made with lamb, but people tend to use the term interchangeably these days, so just felt like for the sake of being right, I should point that out. These mushrooms have a lot of liquid in them, so keep your heat up nice and high so we can cook that off and not just boil the meat in the mushroom liquid. We're adding 1 cup of diced white onion and 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, 2 teaspoons of fresh rosemary, 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, and go ahead and stir all of that to combine. We're still working over medium-high heat here again because of all the moisture in the pan. We want to go ahead and get those onions cooked till they're nice and translucent, and also render out all the water from the mushrooms. We haven't seasoned it yet to this point, so a generous pinch of salt and a generous grinding of black pepper will go in. And all that water right there, that is really our enemy. We need to get that cooked out, so just keep stirring it every few minutes until all you see is the fat left in the pan. Next up, make a little spot for some tomato paste. A couple tablespoons will go in. Go ahead and start to toast that off, get it warm, and then go ahead and distribute it around through your ground beef, mushroom, and onion mixture. I noticed mine was really still lacking in fat because the beef was so lean, so I added another little splash of olive oil, but you want about 2 tablespoons of fat in the pan, and we will add 2 tablespoons of flour to that. We're kind of making a roux here. So go ahead and stir that around until all of the flour is incorporated. You don't see any white spots remain, and the mixture should be a little bit gravelly, almost like wet sand. At this point, we can go ahead and build our sauce. And that is going to start with 1/4 cup of merlot or cabernet sauvignon, a red wine of your choice. If you want to skip the wine, you would just add a 1/4 cup of beef stock to the recipe. In our case, we're using 3/4 cup of good quality beef stock. And for a nice umami punch that you just really can't get any other way, I'm going in with a dash of Lee and Perrin Worcestershire sauce, about a tablespoon or so. Go ahead and stir all of that around. Everything needs to get to know one another, and cook it off over medium to medium-high heat for 5 to 7 minutes, or until the liquid slightly reduces and you've got a nice, luscious, and thick sauce coating your meat. Go ahead and get that into your baking dish, and by the way, it should come up no more than halfway, otherwise we're going to have a potato problem. I'm adding about 3/4 of a cup of frozen peas and carrots along with a handful of fresh parsley. Frozen vegetables are totally acceptable for this. They will cook through in the oven and be just nice and tender. Go ahead and stir all of that around, get those frozen vegetables evenly distributed, and then you want to make sure that your mince mixture is in a nice even layer before we bring on our potato friends. Speaking of which, they're still nice and warm. Just dollop them around the top of the meat. Once you get about 1/2 to 3/4 of it in there, you can start slowly spreading it out towards the edges. And you do really want to work the potatoes all the way to the edges, because as this cooks and gets hot all the way through, you're going to have meat juices and grease bubbling up, and having a nice seal on those edges really keeps everything nicely contained. Now, once you've got that spread out evenly, you could really stop there, but I think for a stunning presentation with very minimal effort, dragging a fork across the very top layer of the potatoes is going to give you a beautiful finished product. What will also give us a beautiful finished product is cheese, and in this case I'm going with some grated Parmigiano Reggiano, just right across the top. We're going to tuck that into a 425-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, or until it is beautifully browned. Everything's already cooked, of course, so it's really just about heating things through again and getting a lovely color on the top. You can see those meat juices were still trying to force their way up around the potatoes, but our seal held things in place. Of course, we're going to garnish this with something green, in this case parsley. I know, no green onions in this video. I feel some kind of way about that, but I'm sure we will double up next time. In order to serve this, get a nice big spoonful, perhaps even 2 spoonfuls, and get it down onto a plate. Now I gotta say, you know me and how I like to plate things, there's not really very many ways to make this look, pretty, but it's gonna be pretty amazing, so it's a fair compromise. A little extra parsley and parm over the top, and only one thing really left to do here, right? Let's see how we did. Those potatoes are so creamy, perfect texture. That beef mince is incredibly tender. It's got such a rich depth of flavor from that Worcestershire sauce and tomato paste. Those vegetables, because they were frozen when we put them in the oven, still have a nice mouthfeel and bite to them. Gotta go in for a second bite. Man, it's just comfort food on a plate. It's perfection. This is a great dish to make, even if it's only for 1 or 2 people, because the leftovers stay great for a couple of days. I'm not really even sure if there's gonna be any leftovers, because instead of taking a plate, I just went ahead and grabbed my bowl of dinner for the evening. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll give this a try, but definitely go make something delicious.